Hi, guys, and welcome back to Neil with Neil and Thomas. This is, oh yeah,
Hello.
we now have mugs so you can tell who we are just in
We've
case.
got merch. Well,
Merch! Well, it's all for
mainly for
us.
us, but
We are trying things out. That's
Mm,
what we do here at Neil. Anyway, this is a new episode of Neil Reality, our podcast delving into the Flemish show Demo. We're a little behind, so this is going to be a double episode to get us up to speed. The
yeah.
reason we're behind is because obviously I do not speak Flemish fluently and find it very difficult to understand, and it is sometimes a little difficult to get a working copy and subtitles. But we're there.
Yeah.
I've seen it all now. We're up to date, and well, until tonight. We are recording this
Mhm.
the same night that episode 4 comes out. But Afleveringen 2 is where we should start. I
Yeah.
think let's just jump straight into it. We don't need to pussy around with any of the other things we normally do. We just get straight
Yeah.
in.
And we don't like to pussy around anyway.
Okay, we're setting the tone straight away. Um, okay, so episode 2, it starts back up on the roof where the elimination happened in the previous episode.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
non-elimination. No one got sent home.
Yeah.
Gilles leaves, but then the screen shows a video from earlier in the day where Gilles meets with Demo and gets him to practice his surprise face because they are revealing that there will be a double elimination at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
I love the way they do this. Like most TV shows just tell. They do this whole thing of show and producing it. Like it's so just enchanting to watch, isn't it? Like it's just like I want to know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way. Yeah, that's something that because we were talking about the diary of the mole, which is something that they started doing a couple seasons ago, and it started off by just having the diary as just like text appearing on screen.
Mhm.
Where you could see what the mole was saying. You could also hear the mole's voice, like sort of like changed and computerized, but
Yeah.
you didn't actually see any footage. It was just the text. And now they've changed it into either the mole is wearing a big hoodie and you can't see who it is, or in this case you see Jill sitting at the table and you obviously know that there's the mole sitting across the table, but you can't see who he is. But I like it. It adds for the suspense, and also it makes it very ominous when they do announce certain twists in the game, because that's also usually how, like in this case, how the candidates themselves find out that something is about to happen. I think it's very, very cool.
It feels like it feels like we're living in the game a little bit when we're watching for that 1 hour every week. And
Yeah.
that's great. So yes, it's going to be a double elimination, and we don't really get much else that night. We get to see some shocked faces. One of those shocked faces is not really a shocked face.
Yeah.
Uh, but we'll move to the next day. Hilda is trying to set up her daughter with Nimrod. Um,
Yeah.
r-
Yeah, that's true.
which I mean, you can't blame a woman for trying.
No,
Like,
no.
and he works in wealth management, so
Yeah.
not bad. Just saying.
And he's just a nice guy. He's good looking. He's a nice guy. Who wouldn't want that for
Or
her
is
daughter?
he? We do need to get into that flavoring tree later
Ooh.
on.
I
Um,
mean, yeah.
Rusiana, I've written down that she's writing in her Molbukiet and Shrilik, which I thought is really clever. So no one
Yeah,
can
yeah,
look
yeah, yeah,
over her
yeah.
shoulder and see what she's writing.
Yeah.
Um, Jan was singing along to something because I was like, "Yep, this is." Jan is once again showing he's me. Um,
Yeah.
But then we get into the challenge. Now, this is a beautiful location that most of them go
Yeah.
to, like
It's
this
the
big
Dragon
dragon
Tower or
tower.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, long story short, Alexei and Rosianna. Is it Alexei and Rosianna or Alexei and someone? I can't remember who was.
It's Alexei and Rusiana go into a separate room, basically.
They're in a spa. but
Yeah.
they don't get any spa treatments. They just get to
No, and
wear
I think they were slightly disappointed by that.
I know,
Would have been.
and they were put in like robes to make them feel like they were about to, and then it's like, okay, get to work. Um,
At least
so
they got the vibe a little bit.
yeah, they have to fold different animals. They've got tutorials for 15. They only need 12 because it's the
Yeah.
Chinese zodiac. And there's lots going on, but
Oh
essentially,
yeah.
they have buttons that they could press with a towel, that whipping the towel.
Yeah, they have to like twist the towel and do the yeah.
Like locker room stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the other time, the other candidates are running through the Dragon Tower, getting clues to find out it's anagrams of famous people, and
Yeah,
they
so
need to figure out
famous
how old
Flemish-
when they were born.
Famous Flemish people, so their names and anagrams. So they have to, they have to solve the anagram and get the name. Then they have to run back to where the rest of the candidates are standing, and there's a load of pillars, and they have to hang or put the name of the celebrity on the right pillar, and each pillar has, I think it's a year of birth, like a birth year, and they have to sort of guess which celebrity is born in which year. I think that's the main thing that they're responsible for.
There was a moment where one of the celebrities is someone I didn't know, but clearly, I think it was someone called
being
Camille.
Flemish, yeah.
Camille
Dont, yeah, she's a singer, yeah.
Okay, and I think they played one of her tracks, and I was just like, this sounds so much like Untouched by the Veronicas.
Okay, yeah, I could see that, yeah.
It was very dramatic, very much loved it. Basically, they go in pairs through the tower, they get 5 minutes to get the anagram and bring it back, blah, blah, blah. But then there's a red button in with Alexei. And Alexei keeps pressing it by accident, on purpose. Who knows?
I mean, you could say it's on purpose because he's purposely trying to hit the red button. They obviously don't know, or they don't know what the red button does. Although I would think when it says minus 60 or minus 1, is it minus 1 or minus 60 seconds or 1 minute? I don't know what it said. One of the two.
Yeah, I think it put back the video by 60 seconds, but it also removed like a minute from the tower.
Yeah, so basically, they had 5 minutes for each couple to go into the tower and find as many anagrams as possible. But when Alexei hit the red button with a towel, a minute was taken off of those 5 minutes. Now, they obviously don't know that that's going to happen unless one of those two is the mole. So you could say he was definitely hitting it on purpose, but did he know what it did? I would think it's fairly logical. If it says minus, I don't remember minus 60 seconds, minus 1 minute. It's the same thing anyway. I don't know what it said, what it was, but if it says that, surely and it's the fact that it's a big red button would kind of logically you would think that's probably bad news. Yeah, danger. Exactly.
Don't do this.
That's just my feeling.
I did think it was really funny when like he did it multiple times on one of the couples. And like they just went in, and then almost instantly the gong went to say that they only had a minute left, and they're like,
"How is this possible?" Because they obviously didn't know what was going on. They had no clue that the other two had any influence on their time, and they probably have some inkling that what the other two are doing will probably have something to do with their challenge, but they had no clue that it had anything to do with the time. So it was funny to watch. It was suspicious, definitely. It was definitely suspicious by Alexei. That's the thing, and we talked about this in the first episode, where it could be a tactic. Being so obvious could be a tactic because it makes people think, well, that's too obvious, so he's not the mole.
Mm-hmm.
It could be,
I think they only then ended up getting 4 correct, if that, because they then had to identify the animals, and some of them were not identifiable. That pig.
I still do not know how you can see a pig in that. I don't know how they saw a monkey in it either.
I could kind of slightly see a monkey.
Really?
But not really.
Yeah. I
but
mean,
kinda.
to be honest, a lot went wrong in that challenge, but I also feel like it was a tricky challenge. Like, even being Flemish, I had no clue when all of these artists or celebrities were born. You can sort of like have an inclination, but when you have 3 or 4 names that are sort of similar in age, I don't know if one's born in 1965 and the other's born in 1970. I have no clue. So that was not an easy challenge. And then it also doesn't help when the towels that they folded were not the correct towels. They were not always the correct towels. There were a couple of them that they needed, but a couple that they folded were not needed for this challenge. And they could
Yeah.
have found out this with, I think it was a radio player with a CD, and it played songs in sort of. I thought that was so clever that they
The
played the
Baby Shark.
songs. Yeah, and they played it in a sort of loungy, sort of like sauna-ish vibe. I thought that was so cute. And there were a
Yeah.
lot of really obvious one when I was listening to it, where it's like, no matter what age you are, you know this song. This is an easy one. And then they didn't get them. And I was like, this is so weird. So a lot of suspicious activity there as well.
I think there's just a lot going on as well. Just a very
Mm,
difficult. We do then see a clip of the mole or disguised saying that
mm.
they didn't they had a plan to sabotage this one, but thought it was too risky.
Risky. Yeah.
So they were going to save their mole coffer for the train.
Oh, now
And
this
that's our
is
next
probably
challenge.
one of my favorite challenges of the last couple of seasons. This was so cool. So much fun.
It was great. So first of all, they get on the train and they each have a suitcase with a different amount of money in it
Yeah,
from how well they did in the previous mole quiz test
exactly.
or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So the mole would have the highest amount of 1,000 because that they know everything. They know
Yeah.
everything. They
And
don't
also,
have
they
to
don't
take
fill
it.
in the test. They don't actually take the
Yeah.
test. So,
Um, so basically, it then becomes clear that only 8 of them can move through to the next carriage. Their briefcases are tied up. They have to
yeah.
solve a little puzzle.
Yeah.
Pedro was first out and he ran.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slightly suspicious how fast he ran because he didn't even try and help. There were some others who tried to help before
I
leaving.
mean, but here's the thing. I always think, and this happens in several challenges, and it's the same thing, and we'll get to this later, when there's past questions involved, or, sometimes they can get a card that, you know, means that they don't have to take the test. They automatically go to the next episode. I would do the same thing. Like, I'd be like, I'm sorry, guys. I love you. You're my friends. We're having a great time here, but I'm trying to get to to next episode. So I've
Okay, I
solved my
will
puzzle. To each his own,
remind me not to go on anything with you. Um,
I mean, if you were about to die, I would help you. But it's a game. That's
thank
just
you
my
for that.
view. It's a game. So you want to get us, and this is something that a lot of these candidates, some of them have tried to get on the show for years, and when you finally do it, you do not want to get eliminated in the first couple of episodes.
Yeah,
Ideally, you want to get to the final.
yeah. So we get
So
8
yeah,
going through to the next carriage. They're split into 2 teams of 4, and it's basically a who can name more countries ending in land.
yeah.
Now, I have issues with this challenge. Scotland is a country. I don't care
It's
if the United Kingdom is part of is a country. It's part of
but
it
that's
is its
not
own country.
but that's not the thing. I told you before. You're going to have to apologize, Neil, for being such a patriotic Scottishman. Neil is obviously watching this show with English subtitles. It gets lost in translation. That's basically what it was. And I told you this before. You need to drop it. You need to
I'm not
move
dropping.
on.
Scotland is a real country.
They didn't say it's not a real country. It's just the word country means different things. And because it's a different language, it gets lost in translation. Anyway, important to mention, two candidates did in fact not make it to the next carriage, Pasquino
Yes.
and Nimrod. We need to mention this because that's important for later on in the same challenge. But yeah, they do. Funny thing, they're naming all these countries with ending with land, one that all of them forgot, Thailand. You're in bloody Thailand. I was screaming from the top of my lungs, like, Thailand, you're in fucking Thailand, say it. But that was funny to me. Or it could have been, because I think, was it Sarah that eventually mentioned Thailand?
I think so, maybe.
Or was it Michelle?
I've lost their names already. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I'm always sort of like mixing up Sarah and Michelle for some reason.
But yeah, I wrote down Thailand. That was good. So 4 of them get through. They take through some of the suitcases as well from the other 4.
Yeah.
They then have to individually, not individually, but in pairs, carry glasses without dropping them through the moving train.
Yeah.
Some of them are on their head. Some of them are on a tray.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of them left many glasses left available. I think most of them broke. They didn't earn any money on this anyway. They all dropped too many to earn any money. But there was a few that weren't broken, and that meant that it was Luciana and Hilda.
Yeah,
won, and they went
the
through
last
to
standing.
they went to the final carriage again,
which was kind of an obvious one since Luciana has done waitress work. I don't know if she's still a waitress, but she has done waitress, or she mentioned, I think.
I've done waiter work, and even I think I would struggle with that. Like we were in
especially having glasses on your head.
Yeah, we were in a beer garden this week, and I was just had 3 glasses, and I was still like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a difficult challenge. Like, it's almost too difficult. I was beginning to think that was the mole, like, doing something, like, to make the challenge harder. But
do you mean wasn't. The glasses, like carrying the glasses, or do you mean the entire? Yeah.
The glasses, like.
I don't necessarily think that it's such. I think they went about it the wrong way. I think they wanted to get. I think they were so adamant to get as many glasses across that they sort of forgot about the fact that you've only got. It was only a couple of €100, I think.
Yeah, €500 each.
Breaks, yeah, and each glass that breaks was minus €100. So you could have just tried having the plate and not anything else. Finish, bring the plate with the glasses safely onto the next, to the end of the carriage, and at least you would have earned some money. But the thing is, and this is where it gets interesting, this challenge, is that is already, although being in pairs, that's already them thinking about themselves, thinking about, we don't care about the money. We just want to get as many glasses across as possible because we need to because obviously all of them want to get to the end. They want to know what's in their briefcase. They want to know how well they did on the previous test. So money was money was out of the, they didn't care. It was just like, I need to get to that last carriage. That's it.
I need to know how I'm doing. We see a moment with Hilda and Rossiana. Only one of them can go enjoy Jill. Hilda is pleading, begging.
Yeah.
She is close to throwing all of her toys out of the pram. She is desperate. And here's the thing: I was with Rossiana after. I don't trust Hilda. There was there's something about Hilda that's just a little bit sneaky, and that proved correct.
Or is it also because we all, as viewers, already knew that Hilda, in one of her videos before they left on this journey, she already said to the camera, I love cheating.
Yeah.
I love cheating. Luciana obviously doesn't know that, but I thought Luciana was going to put up a bigger fight. I thought she was, because she was mainly just saying, oh, I don't trust you, I don't trust you, I don't trust you. But she wasn't really doing much to convince Hilda why she should be the one going through.
That
and
is
why
true.
She should be trusted. I thought that was kind of curious that she didn't, that she didn't fight for herself a little bit more.
Yeah. We then find out that someone else is heading to jail. Nimrod has left the carriage at one of the stops and has biked along with the train. There's great footage of Nimrod outrunning this train. And I think I said to you, if anyone could do this, it is Nimrod. Those legs look powerful. And I'm not saying that in a weird way. They look powerful.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's just almost like 2 seconds too late.
Yeah.
He's very close. You don't know.
And the thing is, he did actually outrun the train. He was on time. Yeah, I think he arrived simultaneously, or even just before the train pulled into the station. But obviously, Ruslana, we're so Europe.
Brain rot.
I mean, look, Ruslana has been on Flemish TV before. But obviously, Rusiana and Hilde had, by that point, agreed that it would be Hilde going through to the last carriage. So Rusiana decided to trust Hilde. I was kind of slightly disappointed because I thought that would have been a great twist if Hilde comes into the carriage and it would have been
Nimrod just chilling.
Yeah, I beat you.
And this is where things get interesting. So Hilda gets the option to either open the 4 suitcases she's been able to bring with her. They are named, and see who got what, and
how much money they earn with the challenge, mainly.
Or just bank the money that it's worth. Now it's over £1,000, or sorry, euro. And here's where I got tricked as well. So she decides to open them.
Her own suitcase.
Including her own suitcase.
No, just her own. That was the choice. It was either bank the money of all the suitcases that she brought in, or open her own suitcase and lose the money, but see how well she did on the test.
So we then see We then see that she got £800, and we know that it's just between 1,000. It's just over 1,000 something. So we're like, well, that could be confirmation that's not Hilda, it's not Els, it's not Sarah, it's not Jan who are the mole.
Yeah.
And Hilda goes on to say this. I'm messaging you, being like, well, that's ruined half the show. Half the candidates can't possibly be the mole now.
Yeah.
That fucking mole coffer.
Yeah. Because I was confused when you said that. I was like, huh? Because I was already ahead of you. I was already thinking, but the mole coffer, yeah.
So obviously the mole is able to go in and change their amount so that it doesn't show 1,000. So who knows who got what? It really puts this sort of like cast of doubt over absolutely everyone. It's crazy how I'm now just like, well, what amount would the mole put in?
Yeah.
They're obviously not going to put in £1,000, but
can I just interject, because I'm not sure we're on the same page here, because from what I understood from the challenge, the mole was able to change the content of his own briefcase, not the content of the others. So basically that means that Hilde, who got £800, so seeing as the mole gets 1,000 euros, he gets 1,000 euros. That means there's one person above Hilde with 900 euros. We don't know who that is, but we know that there's one person above her who filled in the test a little bit better than she did. So she already knows that she had 800 euros in her. So she does have an advantage, knowing that she's doing pretty well.
But here's the thing. Cast out over all of that as well, because Hilda could be the mole and have looked in it so that there's no money, and then she's able to say, well, I had 800 to everyone else, so I'm pretty good at knowing who the mole is. There's so much going on.
True.
She was so desperate to get into that. Honestly, my final note here is just damn mole coffer. Like, I hate it.
I love it.
I love it for the drama, but I hate it in trying to figure out who the mole is.
Yeah. It does make it trickier. Yeah.
We do have an elimination, of course, double elimination, and I think and we say goodbye to Pasquino and Sienna. I was so gutted for Sienna. I thought she brought a lot to this. Pasquino was great and lovable, but Rosiana was just a fantastic candidate, in my opinion. I thought she was the right amount of funny, the right amount of distrust. Yeah, perfect. But yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I was gutted for both of them, but I was more gutted for Pasquino because I felt like in some of these challenges he would have already had a bit of a disadvantage having only one, properly
Working eye,
working
yeah.
eye. So especially in the first carriage when they had to solve that little puzzle to unlock their suitcase, if you've only got one eye, your depth is not as good as the rest of the candidates. So it would make it already a lot of trickier for you to solve that puzzle. So I was kind of sad for him, and I was kind of hoping him to be the mole and be like, that would have been perfect because a mole, in Animal Kingdom, does not see very well. So I feel like that would have. Did you see that fly just flying in front of my face?
No, it doesn't. Sorry.
Okay, thank God.
I'm just glad you didn't. I'm just glad you didn't scream because you've done that a couple of times in the last week with bees and wasps.
Oh yeah, bees. Yeah, well, flies I'm okay with. But yeah, that would have been a funny thing if the mole actually only had one working eye. But he got eliminated. Sad.
It is sad. It is sad. He seemed like lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's really that. Other than Hilda, did this episode give you any more suspicions over any of the candidates?
I would say Nimrod has risen a lot for me in the suspicious scale. I just felt like it would be. You've never seen this season, but there was we obviously had 3 seasons by the late 90s, early 2000s, and they didn't do any seasons for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then they came back. I think it was 2016. I can't remember. The first season that they came back with in 2016, there was a similar challenge where one candidate had to chase a metro, a train. So the other candidates were doing challenges at the metro stops, and one of the other candidates was running across the city trying to catch the train and trying to get there and board the train at the last or before the last stop or something. And he turned out to be the mole. So I was kind of thinking back at that, and I thought, like, since he did that so fast, Nimrod, and it looked almost like is either very sporty, which I think he is, or he trained for it. Because it would have been the ideal thing. It would have been the ideal twist to have the mole catch the train. Because we also see in this episode, I don't think we've mentioned this already. You see in this episode where the mole and Jill are having a conversation, and the mole says the ideal situation would be if I get into the last carriage in whatever way, by either passing all the challenges and getting there, or if you know that there is the option of getting on a bike and trying to catch the train, you could train for that.
Yeah.
And try to get there. So that has, made him more suspicious. But I was also still very much on Pedro after episode 2.
Is that because did the running not help? Like how fast he left the carriage? Or is that not part of it?
Not really. I mean, it's mainly from episode 1. I thought he was very suspicious. In episode 2, it was just with Pedro. It's the little things. He sometimes steers the group in a certain direction. He sometimes, I feel like he's always either really quick to say, "Oh, I want to do this challenge. I want to do that challenge," or he sort of cleverly waits for other people to fill in spots and then be like, "Oh, well, I'll do that then."
Well,
it's things like that make him suspicious to me. What
well,
about you?
on Hilda, I'm on Hilda. Michelle didn't do really anything in this episode, but I still just have I'm on Michelle. I'm watching her. Obviously, Alexei was a little bit suspicious in the first challenge.
Yeah.
Who knows? But this is a perfect segue to episode 3. So they're all having breakfast. They open a watermelon and there is a note in it, and this is exactly where it is. Do you remember what the note said? Because this is my full notes for episode 3.
Yeah, I was there. I rewatched the episode with Neil. We obviously spent the week together in Glasgow with our friend Sarah. What did the note say? It said something about
It was people,
needing 6 people or wait, there were
6 people for heights,
6 people
and 2
who like
people.
heights or something, and then 2 people. And then 2 people doing another challenge. I think that
Yeah,
was what the note said, roughly.
and this is where Pedro and Jan were both fairly quiet. Everyone else was sort of arguing over who got to do the heights, and
See,
Pedro was
that's what
quite
I'm
quiet.
saying. Because he's in the other challenges, he's been like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and in this one, he was kind of like, you guys pick.
This whole episode, they did sort of seem to like sit back a little bit more, but this challenge is fantastic.
Brilliant.
Piece of cinematic history. This deserves Emmy Awards, Golden Globes. Honestly, fantastic. But basically, the challenge is the 6 who like heights. They're not actually doing anything height related at all. They are measuring elephants.
Which is height related.
Yeah, but they're not doing anything at a height.
No.
They're trying to put 8 elephants in size order.
Something like that. Yeah.
So you just see them running around trying to measure elephants. It's quite entertaining.
What would have been your tool of preference to measure the elephants? Because they had a rope that was a amount of centimeters. They had was it a stick or something?
Yeah, so the stick was 30 centimeters and the rope was 50 centimeters.
Yeah.
Now, I probably would have taken the rope because if I had the 30 centimeters, I would be converting everything into feet and inches. Which wouldn't work with when everyone else is Flemish and doing meters. So I would use the 50 so that I was in that metric mode. Did you get any? So basically, once they had things in a certain order, one of them had to press the button. If they weren't correct, then they were out of the game. And if there was no one at the board, Leland had to run back to get to the board. Yeah. And there's a lot of phone calls going back and forward. There was a lot of confusion over who. I felt like this was messy. They had an hour. I felt like they could have done this a little bit cleverer.
I mean, the funny thing is, in Cafe de Mol afterwards, someone said something about they could have just, knowing that each person would get eliminated if they pressed the button and the order was not correct, they could have just put them in a random order, press the button, see which is correct, change the others, press the button, see which is correct, and they could have gotten there without losing all the time. They could have gotten there really quick without actually having to go and measure the elephants. And I thought that was quite a clever thing to notice, because in a sense, yes, that makes sense. But on the other hand, these kind of challenges have always been very chaotic. And I feel like when you have a group of 6 people that have to work together and everybody has their input and everybody has their ideas, you're bound to mess things up and you're bound to make it really difficult for yourself, when in hindsight, it could be very easy. But I thought that was quite interesting.
That is interesting. They could have just, But then you do run the risk of not actually having tried to measure and not knowing the right order and running out of people.
But I don't exactly, because they did the math. I'm not good enough at maths to figure it out and to tell you how exactly it would have worked. But it would have worked out in that sense that since there were 6 people, they would have had the right order before the last person was eliminated.
Well,
anyway,
I will also say
it didn't do that. So
it's not in the spirit of the game either, is it?
Like, we want to see them run around as well.
We want to see them run around after elephants. The one name that I wrote down during this part was Michelle, because she just seemed to give up on anything and just was like, whack them up. Didn't listen to anyone else.
What I thought was suspicious about Michelle in that challenge is that she was paired up with Hilde, I think. And Hilde was like, oh, let's just switch these things and let's just do something randomly. And she was like, no, Hilde, that's too random. No, blah, blah, blah. And then she does the same thing 5 seconds later. And I'm like, really?
Bitch!
That was suspicious to me.
Great moment in this challenge. Hilda's running through the mud and loses her shoe.
best moment of the entire series so far.
And then is trying to find the other one, and it's like, oh, it's on my foot. And I was like, that is the sort of thing me and you would do.
Yeah, we've done that with our phone a couple of times. Where's my phone? Oh, it's right there.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't use my phone anymore. Mine's it's right here already. But yeah, so the whole point of this challenge, once they eventually get it right, is they get the location of Pedro and Jan, who have been left alone with no instructions for an hour. No instructions. They left straight men alone with no instructions and tools of destruction. So the whole
and
point
of watermelons.
And a crate of whole watermelons. So the whole point of what they were meant to do was just do nothing. Keep the watermelons safe because they needed to be whole to feed the elephants and win money.
Yeah.
What goes on next during that hour is crazy.
Comedy gold.
Just put the Yakety Sack Spinny Hill theme tune on the back of it and it would work. It was just brilliant. So they start like playing basketball with it, doing bowling, breaking up all the watermelons,
cutting them up,
they
smashing them with hammers.
Like, demolish them, blah, blah, blah. And then they sort of think, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this because they see a little message that comes up every time one smashes. And they smash more to see the words to try and get the order. And they sort of semi-figure it out. And
I mean, they did figure it out. I still don't understand when the message clearly says, he who does nothing can't do anything wrong. If that is the full message, why would you do anything more? Why would you not just sit still and do nothing? It makes no sense.
They did end up stopping for a little while. Yeah. And that's the last we see before Els and Alexei turn up.
Alexei, yeah.
And they go, we need the whole watermelons. And Jan and Pedro just look at each other like, fuck.
I love Pedro's face. Pedro's face was like, it's just like that, like, oops.
Cue montage of them breaking all the remaining ones. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that whole challenge became worthless. Not a single penny was earned. Absolutely hilarious.
That's fantastic. But here's the thing, though, and I was thinking about this later. When you are left without instructions and you're in was like a shack, wasn't it? Like they were standing in?
Yeah.
When you're there and you see a crate of watermelons and then a whole bunch of hammers and knives and all kinds of things to cut them up with, what would your logical reaction be? It would be to, we have to cut up these watermelons. That would be my initial reaction. So I didn't think that was illogical for them to do that. What was illogical, like I said, was when they had that message that said, don't do a thing, that Jan was like, not doing anything doesn't feel right. Maybe we should cut up all the rest as well. And then they start cutting them up. Fantastic, though.
We then found out that it was the mole who put the task into the watermelon to make them think that the watermelons had to be broken into, or there might have been a note in some of them or something along those lines. I think that was the final conclusion. I think that's what happened and why they decided to break them all up.
But then, I think it was only half the contestants that have that information that the mole did that. Because didn't they do a slight
the radio mole
challenges in the car? The radio mole challenge. Yeah.
I forgot all about that. I forgot about it because I don't know any Flemish jingles anyway. So I was just
yeah. So basically, they had to do these. They get Flemish, like very famous Flemish jingles, radio jingles, and they hear them, but they're translated into Thai, and they have to recognize the jingle. They're in two separate cars, two groups. The car that gets the most points gets a special advantage. So the advantage is that they get to see a recording of the mole explaining how they will sabotage the challenge with the watermelons. Now, I thought that was probably this far the cleverest sabotage that he's done, because it's so subtle, because you can hear at some point either Jan or Pedro saying, oh, but this morning
Yep.
there was a note in the watermelon. Maybe we should cut up the other watermelons because there might be messages in them. Like, even as the mole, you don't have to be in that place with Pedro and Jan. You could just be in the other group and you can sort of assume that they're going to do it because of that. So how clever was that? I was blown away by that.
Yeah. Do we have any? Do we need to get into Radio Mole more? Who was it who saw
No,
that message? It was Nimrod, Hilda, other
I don't
people.
even remember it. Yeah. No,
For,
I
for,
don't think it was that important who saw it, but I do think that was. I just wanted to mention it because it was brilliant. It was just the way that the mole did that. I do want to add one more thing before we go to the next part. One thing that I also found very suspicious during the measuring of the elephants was Hilda, a well-educated woman, going 30 centimeters, 30 centimeters, 30 centimeters. She was like, oh, it's I don't know, what was it like? Oh, 7 times 30 centimeters. That's 1 meter and 90 centimeters. I'm like, I'm horrible at math, and I knew that was not correct. Like, how did you get to 1 meter and 90 centimeters from doing 7 times 30? I was amazed by that, and I thought, well, that's a bit suspicious, isn't it?
maybe, maybe just a little bit. But yeah, that is 210 is what it should have been.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, it could be on purpose, or it could just be the chaos of doing the challenge and wanting to do it really, really fast. But, if we're talking about what was suspicious in this challenge, I thought that was pretty suspicious.
Yeah. And then the final challenge, Thomas, I think I'm going to have to get you to explain this because there was a lot going on. A lot of it was in Dutch. I couldn't keep up with the subtitles. We go into some sort of illegal gambling den, which is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, wait, let me try and get this straight. So basically, they go into this gambling room.
Straight?
Let's get gay into this. So they go into this room. There's a Thai guy sitting at a little table, and then there's Jill sitting at a larger table, and they all sit down around Jill. Basically, they each get a number. So there's 8 of them. They have one ball, like one. It's kind of like a bingo sort of like ball, right? And it's in this sort of like, what do you call it?
A bingo popper thing.
Yeah, yeah. They each get assigned a number from 1 to 8. They all have one ball. And basically, the Thai guy is going to pick 3 numbers. And those 3 people who have their number taken get 2 pass questions.
Yep.
I don't think I have to explain what they are. If you're watching this, you obviously know what they are. So they get 2 pass questions, which is a big deal. But then Jill says, to make it more interesting, when you go to the guy to get your number, you can choose to buy extra balls with your number, which increases your chance of your number being pulled.
Yep.
Yeah.
€200 a pop, a max of 4 each.
A max of 4 each, but which could, if there's 8 candidates and they all go for 4, that could be a lot of money.
It could be negative money.
Yeah.
Have they put into negative money?
It has happened before
in
other episodes, but earlier on in the season. Now, obviously, we don't get to see who gets what number, and we also don't get to see who buys extra balls. Basically, before they go and get their number, they all sort of like fake agree that they're going to go for the money and they're not going to buy extra balls. They want to keep it fair. Bullshit.
Pedro's quite what's the word? He's quite domineering in this conversation to try and get everyone to agree to that.
Yeah. Which, look, we'll get into that in a second, which I already think is quite suspicious. But anyway, obviously some of them do buy extra balls. We don't know who. Then the Thai guy comes back and Jill says, so if you were all honest and you didn't buy any extra balls with your number on it, that means that the guy does not have any extra balls with him to add them. Now, obviously, he adds 12 more balls, so 12 more have been bought at €200 per ball.
Yeah.
So that's 2,400 euros, something like that.
Yes, you're better than Hilda.
Yeah, so that's minus 2,400 euros, which already was like, oh, they're actually losing money on this challenge,
Horrible amount of money as well.
which is horrible. And then they go into this little poker game where they all sit around the table, and Jill says, "So we're going to try and figure out who bought extra balls, and we're going to do this through a couple of challenges. The first one is a couple of Thai masseuses go underneath the table and start massaging the feet of the people who bought extra balls. Now, obviously, the candidates can't see whose feet are being massaged, so they have to look at each other's face and try and figure out whose face is changing, who's maybe revealing themselves. I thought that was so funny. Now, the first thing that happens, as soon as these ladies go under the table, Hilda lets out this massive squeak, like going like, "Oh!" Which I thought, like, how obvious could you make it for yourself? Obviously, at the end of the game, we find out that Hilda did not, in fact, buy any extra balls. So why she did that squeak, I don't know, because her feet were not being massaged. But I thought, like, again, that was so suspicious. And I was like, why did you do that? There was no reason for that whatsoever. Nothing in the conversation sparked that. Nobody was touching you underneath the table. So why did you do that? It's to make yourself look suspicious, right? Because obviously,
they could win €1,000 if
yeah,
they choose the right one.
Exactly. Which means if you're the mole, you want that €1,000 to go down the drain. So if you're the mole, if Hilda's the mole, she could easily have just made that sound to make herself look suspicious. She would be out of the game, but still, that's €1,000 already lost. So that would have been a good tactic. But I just thought there was no reason for that squeak whatsoever.
The other thing was that Jan just went mental.
Oh yeah, he just started laughing.
Lost the plot.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a masseuse either.
Nope. He was. I mean, to be fair, I would probably also start laughing, even just nervous laughter. I would, and if someone was massaging my feet, I would definitely be laughing. You would easily be able to tell.
Yeah. They all do sort of reveal in the end. So they vote a couple of people. Everyone they vote did not have the pass dragon. So of course they lost the chance to even make any of the money back as well.
Yeah.
But they do eventually reveal how many they all bought. Nimrod lies. Nimrod said they only bought one. He actually bought 3.
Yeah.
Sarah bought 4, and Alexei bought
1, I think.
We're missing some. Anyway, there's a lot of balls.
Or it might have been 4 as well. A lot of balls. Yeah. There were a lot of balls around that table. Yeah.
There was a lot of balls going on, but Nimrod was the only one who, when they were sort of coming clean, lied. Which was suspicious. He did eventually say, "Look, I bought 3 of them." But yeah, it was just sort of like, what was the point in lying? I don't know.
Yeah,
really.
I don't understand it either. So again, it's either it does make him look suspicious. Lying always makes you look suspicious. So is that the tactic? Could be. But, is he the mole? Could be. Or is it just a way to make himself look suspicious? Because obviously, we've said this before, if you do make yourself look suspicious, it increases your own chances of going through, because they might suspect you when you're not the mole and make a lot more mistakes on the test. So it always comes down to how are they playing the game.
Yeah, well, Pedro's trying to play it very honestly here. Very adamant that he hadn't got any. He hadn't. He was true to his word. But again, if there are suspicions on you, do you then just take a moment off? There was nothing for him to lose, really. Do you just take the moment off to make yourself look good?
I think because the thing is, I mean, Pedro has done some suspicious things before, and he has lost the group some money before. So maybe it could have been just his moment of redemption, being like, you know what, I'm going to be honest in this challenge, because it also helps. Obviously, if everybody's honest and you earn a lot of money, it helps. the vibe, the vibe in the group becomes very positive, and all the better. If he's the mole, then that would be a nice way to be like, you know what, I'm going to try and make myself less suspicious by doing this, because obviously they're going to buy these balls. Obviously there's going to go money out of the group pot, because who doesn't want to advance to the next episode? And maybe not all of them will buy balls, but a lot of them will, and a lot of them will buy the maximum, as two people I think did. So the mole already knows that there's going to be money lost, so he doesn't necessarily have to buy them himself.
Yep.
He can choose to lay low. So again, he tried to make himself less suspicious. In my eyes, it is suspicious.
You can't trust anything in this bloody show.
Nope.
Nothing, not even a good deed goes unpunished. Like, honestly, it's part of the magic of it. But as that's basically the tasks of the third episode. Before we get into the elimination, was there anyone else suspicious to you? Anyone? I'm still eyeing up Michelle. Michelle is on my list.
Do you know what it is with Michelle? For me, she hasn't necessarily done a lot that seems extremely suspicious, but she's sort of like under the radar for me, which is why she's sort of steadily growing on my suspicion scale, to call it that. So, but I'm not fully there on your level where I'm like, oh, she's definitely, she's definitely the mole or anything.
But I felt like this was a difficult episode to even write down who was doing suspicious things, because it was all just mind games at the end of it, really, wasn't it? Like, you could write down that everyone was suspicious in their own way.
Yeah.
Nimrod lying, Pedro being saintly after having destroyed all of the watermelons earlier on in the day. Like, there was a lot going on, but I think I'm still on Michelle. Pedro's a little suspicious, Nimrod's a little suspicious, Alexi's a little suspicious, but Hilda's on that list for sure as well. So I'm sort of looking at Hilda and Michelle. I'm trying not to get too laser focused, but you
don't want that at this stage. Yeah,
they're my biggest suspects at this point.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, Michelle is sort of like in between, sort of like not really suspicious, but also not non-suspicious. Hilda has definitely become a lot more suspicious for me. I'm still very much thinking Pedro. Nimrod, after not specifically this episode, but episode 2, I feel like has definitely made himself look suspicious in my eyes. Alexi is another one that's sort of like climbing a little bit. And then there's there's 2, but I want to mention Else for a minute, because we haven't really mentioned Else a lot in this episode.
No.
Which is also very suspicious, because she doesn't seem... Nothing's going on with her. And I'm like, you are so under the radar. Nobody's talking about you. And that is an excellent position to be in as the mole.
I feel like some of the contestants are talking about her. They were during episode 1 especially.
Yeah. But in the last 2 episodes, I feel like she was very much under the radar. Same with Sarah, to be honest. Although I will say, I was quite surprised at how well she lied and hid her emotions. Hearing, because this is obviously during the bingo / mind game with the balls, they get the people who bought extra balls get to hear a message from home. The other candidates also get headphones but don't hear anything, and they have to try and figure out who's hearing something and who's not. She gets a message from her kids, from her husband, and she does not flinch, not even for a second. And then as the message is over and she reveals that she did actually buy extra balls and gets them, then she breaks down. So you can tell, it does make her emotional, because she's crying because she heard a message from her kids and her husband. But she hit that so well when she had to. And I was like, that is really impressive.
Yeah, no. But I didn't find it overly suspicious in the moment.
No.
But yeah, unfortunately, at the end of this episode, it is Jan who is eliminated. Thank you to the one person in Blue Sky who spoiled it for me.
And me trying to unspoil it for you.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought overall this was a really fun couple of episodes. Because look at this, we have talked about 2 episodes in the same time we talked about episode 1.
Yep.
Fantastic.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. But I thought this was fun. I'm really enjoying this series. I think there's a good group of people. The challenges are fun.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to Thailand. It looks so good.
Fantastic. And the mole cover just makes it all the more interesting because there's just so many twists and turns, and it's like you never know what's going on, you never know what's happening, you never know. Yeah.
I'm sure I've asked you this before, but just again, is this the first time the mole coffer's ever happened?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, to be honest, it's not like it's. Obviously, the mole always sabotages the challenges, and they always find ways to sabotage it. I just feel like the mole cover makes it easier to do because you get to bring these props. But I also think that a lot of it comes down to editing and how they, in other series, the mole would just sabotage and you wouldn't get any clues or hints on how they did it. And now you're getting the clues and the hints because of the props in the mole cover. But yeah, it is the first time that they've actually done it like this. But it does make it a lot more interesting.
I'm loving it. Loving it. Keep the mole cover, guys.
Yeah.
Go on, keep it. But I think we should just leave it there. We've had a nice little chat about those 2 episodes. Remember, if you want to keep up to date with our Dimble series, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and click the notification bell. If you want to get more involved with Niallpoint's normal content, go to niallpoint.com. All the links are in the description below. Brand new website. All the links are there. You can support us and read some vlogs. There might be a couple of reviews coming up soon from our week in Glasgow. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. If you did, make it here. Thank you. And we will see you again next time. Goodbye.
Whee!